The war had ended 3 weeks ago, but nobody told Kova. He lay in the corner of a broken building, his massive body curled against the cold stone. Rain fell through the holes in the ceiling and landed on his burned skin. Each drop felt like fire. He did not move. He did not have the strength. Kova was a Fenric. His masters had made him in a laboratory on a world far from here. They took the DNA of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy and mixed them together. They added metal to his bones and poison to his claws. They'd put a chip in his brain that could deliver pain with the push of a button. He was a weapon. That was his only purpose. For 7 years, Kova had served the Dominion Empire. He had run across battlefields with fire exploding around him. He had killed enemies with his teeth and claws. He had followed every command because the alternative was agony. The chip in his head made sure of that. Disobey, and lightning would tear through his skull. Hesitate, and he would fall to the ground screaming. So he never disobeyed. He never hesitated. His handlers called him Unit 7. They did not give him a real name, because names were for beings that mattered. Kova was just a tool. A very expensive, very dangerous tool. The name Kova came from another Fenric he had fought beside. That one had died in battle, torn apart by enemy fire. Before he died, he had whispered the word. Kova never knew what it meant, but he kept it. It was the only thing that belonged to him. Now he lay dying in a ruined city on a planet called Vulcanine. The Dominion had fought a long war here. They won, but the cost was high. When the fighting stopped, the soldiers packed their ships and left. They took the valuable equipment. They took the healthy war beasts. They did not take Kova. His left back leg was shattered. A piece of metal had gone through it during the final battle. The bone had broken in 3 places. His handlers looked at the injury and did a quick calculation. The cost of fixing him was more than the cost of making a new Fenrik. So they left him. One of the younger soldiers had wanted to shoot him. A quick death. But his commander stopped him. Bullets were expensive too. Let the beast die on its own. Kova had watched them leave. He did not understand what was happening. His whole life, there had been commands. Go here. Kill that. Stop. Wait. Eat. Sleep. Every moment of his existence had been controlled by someone else. Now there was nothing. The silence was the worst part. His ears, designed to hear a whisper from 1,000 meters away, picked up nothing but wind and rain. No orders. No other Fenric. No masters. He was alone. For the first few days, he tried to walk. His training screamed at him to find his unit, to return to base. But his leg would not hold his weight. Every time he stood, pain shot through his body and he collapsed. The chip in his head fired randomly now. Without the handlers to control it, the device was breaking down. It would send jolts of electricity through his brain at odd moments, making him howl in agony. He learned to fear the quiet moments before the pain came. By the end of the first week, Kova stopped trying to walk. He dragged himself instead, using his 3 good legs and his powerful front claws. He moved through the empty streets of the dead city, searching for water, for food, for anything. The city had been beautiful once. He could see the remains of tall buildings and wide roads. There had been people here, families, children. The Dominion had killed them all or driven them away. Now only ghosts remained. Kova found water in a broken pipe. He drank until his stomach hurt. Food was harder. His body was designed to eat meat, but there were no living things left in the city. He found some dead creatures in the rubble and ate them. Even though they made him sick, he kept moving because he did not know how to stop. On the 15th day, he found the building where he would die. It was a small structure, half collapsed but still providing some shelter from the rain. Kova crawled inside and lay down on the cold floor. His burned skin had started to smell bad. His broken leg was swollen and hot. He knew these signs. He was rotting from the inside. The chip fired again, and he screamed. The sound echoed through the empty building and out into the empty city. Nobody heard it. Kova closed his eyes and tried to remember something good. But there was nothing. His entire life had been pain and fear and blood. He had never known kindness. He had never felt a gentle touch. He had never heard a soft word. He was a weapon, and weapons did not deserve such things. The rain continued to fall. Kova's breathing grew shallow. He could feel his heart slowing down, struggling to pump blood through his failing body. Part of him welcomed it. Death meant no more pain, no more loneliness. But another part of him, a small and stubborn part that he did not understand, refused to give up. It made him open his eyes again. It made him take another breath. He did not know why he kept fighting. There was nothing to fight for, and yet he continued to breathe. In and out. In and out, waiting for something he could not name. Above him, hidden by the clouds. A small ship entered the atmosphere of Vulcanine. It carried 3 humans who had come to see what the Dominion had left behind. They would find more than they expected. The Terran scout ship landed in the middle of what used to be a park. Captain Park, Una looked out the window at the gray world outside. Everything was covered in ash and dust. The trees were dead. The grass was gone. Only mud and broken stone remained. Readings show no active life forms in the immediate area, said Kim Ji-woo from her seat at the engineering console. She was the youngest member of the crew, only 23 years old. This was her first real mission outside the safe zones. The Dominion really did a number on this place, said Lee Do-eun. He was the ship's medic, a calm man with gentle hands and tighter eyes. He had seen many worlds destroyed by war. This one was no different. Yun stood up and checked her weapon. We're here to document and report. Nothing more. Stay alert, stay together, and do not touch anything that looks dangerous. The 3 of them walked out into the dead city. The air smelled like smoke and something rotten. Ji-woo covered her nose with her sleeve. Do-hun scanned the surroundings with his medical equipment, looking for signs of chemical weapons or disease. They walked for an hour through the ruins. Everywhere they looked, they saw evidence of the Dominion's cruelty. Bodies that had been left to rot. Buildings burned to the ground. Signs written in a language Yuna could not read, probably begging for help that never came. This is terrible, Ji-woo whispered. Her voice shook. How can anyone do this to a whole planet? The Dominion doesn't see other species as people, Do-eun said quietly. To them, we're all just resources to be used. When we're no longer useful, we're thrown away. Yuna did not speak. She had fought the Dominion for 15 years. She had seen things that still woke her up at night. But she had learned to put her emotions in a box and focus on the mission. The box was getting very full. They continued their survey, taking pictures and recording data. The Terran Republic would use this information to build a case against the Dominion in the Galactic Council. Not that it would matter much. The Dominion had too many allies and too much power. But Yuna believed in trying anyway. It was better than doing nothing. Captain, Ji-woo said suddenly, I'm picking up something on the scanner. A life form. About 300 meters to the east. Yuna stopped walking. What kind of life form? Big. Really big. And it's weak. The readings are fading in and out. Do-hun checked his own equipment. I see it too. Whatever it is, it's dying. Protocol said they should ignore it. Their mission was observation only. They were not equipped for rescue operations, especially not on a hostile world where Dominion forces might still be. Hiding, but Yuna had never been very good at following. Protocol, let's check it out, she said. They followed the signal through the rubble until they came to a half-collapsed building. The reading said the life form was inside. Yuna signaled for the others to stay back and approached the entrance with her weapon raised. The smell hit her first. Blood and rot and something chemical. She had smelled the minion bioweapons before. This was similar, but different. She stepped inside. At first, she thought it was a pile of debris. Then the pile moved, and two yellow eyes opened in the darkness. They were filled with pain and fear, and something that looked almost like surprise. Kova stared at the strange creature standing in the doorway. It was small, much smaller than his handlers. It stood on two legs and held some kind of device in its hands. Its face was flat, with dark eyes and black hair that hung around its shoulders. He had never seen anything like it before. Every instinct told him to attack. This was an intruder, a potential threat. His training demanded violence, but his body would not obey. He was too weak, too broken. He growled instead. It was a pathetic sound, nothing like the roar that used to make enemies run in fear. Yuna lowered her weapon slowly. She could see now what lay before her. It was a Fenric, one of the Dominion's war beasts. She had heard horrors about them. Monsters bred for killing. Unstoppable in battle. Loyal to no one but their masters. This one did not look like a monster. It looked like a dying animal. "Captain, what is it?" Dohan called from outside. "Fenric," she said, not taking her eyes off the creature. "War beast. Badly injured." There was a pause. Then Dohan appeared beside her. His face went pale when he saw Kova. "We should leave," he said immediately. "These things are dangerous. Even injured, it could kill us all." "Look at it," Yuna said. "I am looking. I see claws that could cut through metal. I see teeth designed to crush bone. I see scars," Yuna interrupted. "Old ones. It's been hurt many times. And look at the way it flinches when you raise your voice. It expects pain." Dawan stared at her. "You can't be serious." "The Dominion left it here to die. They threw it away like garbage." Yuna's voice was hard. "I'm not going to do the same. Captain, with respect, this is insane. We don't have the equipment to treat something this size. We don't even know if it can be treated. And if it wakes up and decides we're enemies, then we deal with it." Yuna turned to face Doan directly. "I didn't join the Terran Republic to walk past dying creatures because helping them might be hard." "Did you?" Dohan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He looked at Kova again. The Fenric's eyes had closed. Its breathing was shallow and uneven. "Fine," he said finally. "But when this thing eats us, I want it on record that I objected." They called Jiwoo to help. The young engineer was terrified when she saw Kova, but she did not run. Together, the three of them figured out how to move the massive creature. They used emergency cables to create a stretcher and dragged him slowly back to the ship. Kova drifted in and out of consciousness. He did not understand what was happening. These strange beings should have killed him. That was what his masters would have done. That was what made sense. Instead, they were being careful not to hurt him. It was impossible. It was wrong. His broken mind could not process it. As they loaded him into the ship, Yuna paused and looked at his face. His eyes were open again, watching her. She reached out slowly and touched the fur between his ears. Kova flinched. He waited for the pain to come. It did not. "You're safe now," Yuna said softly. "No one is going to hurt you anymore." He did not understand her words, but something in her voice made him stop growling. The ship lifted off and left a dead world behind. The journey back to Terran space would take 6 weeks. During that time, Kova nearly died 3 times. The first crisis came on day 2. Dawn was trying to remove the metal piece from Kova's broken leg when the creature woke up from sedation. One moment the medic was working carefully with his tools. The next moment, a claw the size of his forearm swung at his head. Jiwoo screamed. Daohan threw himself backward. The claw missed him by the width of a finger. Kova tried to stand, but his body failed him. He collapsed on the medical table, howling in pain and confusion. The sedatives were making everything blurry. He could not tell if these beings were friends or enemies. His training said to fight. Always fight, thought. It took 3 stun charges to put him back to sleep. I told you, Daohan said, his hands shaking as he picked up his dropped tools. I told you this was a bad idea. He's scared, Yuna said. She was standing in the doorway, watching with calm eyes. Wouldn't you be? Being scared doesn't make his claws any less sharp. Yuna nodded. Then we work smarter. Increase the sedation. Set up barriers. Do whatever you need to do. But we're not giving up on him. Daohan wanted to argue, but something in Yuna's voice stopped him. He had served with her for 5 years. He knew that tone. It meant she had made a decision, and nothing in the universe would change her mind on, so he got back to work. Over the next few weeks, Daohan performed miracles. He removed the metal from Kova's leg and set the broken bones. He treated the burns on his skin with healing gel. He spent 3 days mapping the neural implant in Kova's brain, then carefully removed it piece by piece. When the implant came out, Kova's whole body relaxed for the first time in his life. The device was degrading, Daohan explained to Yuna. It was firing randomly, sending pain signals even when there was no command. He's been living in constant torture for weeks. Maybe longer. Will he recover? Physically? Yes, probably. His biology is designed for rapid healing. The bionic leg replacement is integrating well. Daohan paused. Mentally? I have no idea. These creatures are conditioned from birth. Pain is the only language they know. I don't know if that can ever change. Yuna looked through the small window into the cargo bay where Kova was being kept. He was awake now, lying in the corner with his eyes fixed on the door. Every few minutes, he would test the strength of the barriers they had built around him. I want to try something, she said. If you're thinking of going in there, not yet. But I want to start spending time near him. Let him get used to my presence. My scent. My voice. Daohan stared at her. Captain, you're talking about him like he's a traumatized pet. Maybe that's exactly what he is. She started that evening. She brought a chair and a meal and sat just outside Kova's enclosure. He watched her with those yellow eyes, tense and suspicious. When she made any sudden movement, he growled. She did not react to the growls. She just ate her food and talked. She told him about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests, about the animals that lived there, especially the dogs. She told him how humans had lived with dogs for thousands of years, how they had started as hunters together but became something more. Friends? Family. My grandmother had a dog, Yuna said, chewing her rice. His name was Bomi. He was old and half-blind when she got him. Someone had hurt him badly when he was young. He was scared of everything. Loud noises, sudden movements, strangers. Kova did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was soft, calm. There was no anger in it. No threat. It confused him. Grandma never forced him to do anything, Yuna continued. She just sat with him, day after day, week after week. Eventually, he started to trust her. By the end, he would follow her everywhere. He died sleeping at the foot of her bed, happy and peaceful. She looked at Kova through the barrier. I think you could be like Bomi, if someone gave you a chance. Days passed, then weeks. Yuna came every evening. She brought food, always enough for both of them. She would slide a portion through the barrier and watch Kova eat. At first, he would wait until she looked away. Then he began eating while she watched. Then, finally, He began waiting for her to arrive. One evening, Yuna was late. A problem with the ship's navigation system needed her attention. By the time she reached the cargo bay, she was 2 hours behind schedule. Kova was pacing. When he saw her, he stopped and sat down, his tail making one small movement on the floor. Du-hun, who had been monitoring from the medical bay, called her on the communicator. "Did you see that?" he asked, amazement in his voice. "I saw it. That was a tail wag. A small one, but still. These creatures aren't supposed to do that. Their conditioning is supposed to make them incapable of forming attachments." Yuna smiled. Maybe the Dominion doesn't know everything. The real test came a week later. Jiwoo was walking past the cargo bay, carrying a box of spare parts. She tripped on a loose floor plate and dropped the box with a loud crash. Kova moved. Jiwoo screamed and stumbled backward, certain she was about to die. But Kova did not attack. He had pushed himself against the barrier, his nose pointing at the floor where a small component had rolled toward him. He pushed the piece back toward Jiwoo with his nose. Then he retreated to his corner. Everyone on the ship gathered to watch the security footage. They played it over and over. The moment when the war beast, bred for violence and death, had chosen to help instead of harm. "He's changing," Du-hun admitted. "I didn't think it was possible, but he's actually changing." Yuna said nothing. She just went to the cargo bay and sat in her usual chair. This time, she opened the barrier and stepped inside. Kova tensed. Every muscle in his body prepared for an attack that his mind was no longer sure he wanted to make. Yuna sat down on the floor, an arm's length away from him. She held out her hand, palm up, and waited. Minutes passed. Neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Kova stretched out his neck. His nose touched her hand. He breathed in her scent, really learning it for the first time. She did not hurt him. She did not command him. She just waited. Something broke inside Kova, something that had been built over 7 years of pain and fear. He did not know what was replacing it. He did not have words for the feeling that spread through his chest, but for the first time in his life, he laid his head on the ground and closed his eyes without being afraid. Yuna stayed with him until he fell asleep. Then she stayed a little longer, just to make sure he knew she was there. Outside the cargo bay, Jiwoo wiped tears from her eyes. "I think I understand now," she said to Du-hun. "Why the captain did this." Du-hun nodded slowly. "Because sometimes the most broken things just need someone to believe they can be fixed." The distress signal came at midnight. Yuna was asleep in her quarters when the alarm woke her. She was on the bridge in under a minute, still pulling on her jacket. "Report," she ordered. Jiwoo's face was pale. "Colony ship Bright Hope. 3,000 refugees from the Dominion border zones. They're under attack. Dominion forces? Raiders. Looks like a mid-sized assault group. The colony ship has no weapons. They're sitting ducks." Yuna's jaw tightened. "How far?" 4 hours at maximum speed." "But Captain," Jiwoo hesitated, "we're a scout ship. We have 1 small cannon and 3 crew members. If we go in there, we might not come out." The bridge was silent. Everyone knew she was right. This was not their fight. They could report the attack and let a proper warship handle it. By the time help arrived, the colony ship would be destroyed, but at least the 3 of them would be safe. Yuna thought about 3,000 people dying in the cold of space. Men, women, children, all of them hoping someone would save them. "Set course for the Bright Hope," she said. "Maximum speed." Du-hun nodded and adjusted the controls. Jiwoo took a deep breath and began preparing the ship's weapon systems. 4 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel and found hell waiting for them. The Bright Hope was damaged and drifting. 3 Dominion raider ships surrounded it like wolves around a wounded animal. Smaller attack craft flew back and forth, carrying soldiers to the colony ship's hull. They had already cut through in several places. "They're boarding," Dalton said grimly. "They'll take what they want and kill the rest." Yuna did not hesitate. "Get us alongside the colony ship. We're going in." Their small scout ship was fast and hard to hit. Yuna flew it through the crossfire, dodging energy blasts that would have destroyed them in an instant. She found a damaged airlock on the colony ship's side and forced a connection. "Jiwoo, stay here and keep the ship running. Dawn, you're with me." They grabbed weapons and entered the colony ship. Inside, everything was chaos. Emergency lights flashed red. Smoke filled the corridors. The sound of weapons fire echoed from somewhere deeper in the ship. Bodies lay on the floor, some colonists, some Dominion soldiers. Yuna and Dohan moved fast. They followed the sounds of fighting toward the ship's main cargo bay, where the colonists had gathered for protection. Twice they ran into groups of Dominion soldiers. Twice they fought through them, leaving enemies dead behind them. But there were too many raiders. Every corridor seemed to bring more of them. Duhan took a hit to his arm. He kept fighting. Yuna took one to her shoulder. The pain was terrible, but she pushed it away. They had to keep moving. They reached the cargo bay. Inside, hundreds of colonists huddled together in fear. A small group of volunteer fighters held the door, but they were almost out of ammunition. "Terran Republic," Yuna shouted as she entered. "We're here to help." The hope in those people's eyes almost broke her heart. They thought they were saved. They did not know that she had no idea how to get them out of this. Then the main door exploded inward. Dominion soldiers poured into the bay. Not raiders this time, real military. Someone had called for reinforcements. At the front walked a tall figure in commander's armor. His face was scarred and cruel. Well, he said, his voice cold with amusement. "Humans. I should have known." Yuna raised her weapon, but 4 soldiers already had their guns pointed at her head. Beside her, Dahong was forced to his knees, too wounded to fight. The Dominion commander stepped forward. His name was Veth, and he was known throughout the galaxy as a monster. He had burned colonies, enslaved thousands. "Killed for pleasure. You came to save these animals?" he asked, gesturing at the terrified colonists. "You risked your lives for creatures that mean nothing." "Everyone means something," Yuna said through gritted teeth. Veth laughed. It was an ugly sound. "How very human of you. This is why your species will never matter. You are weak, sentimental. You care about things that have no value." He raised his weapon and pointed it at Yuna's head. "Let me show you what strength looks like." On the scout ship, Jiwoo was crying. She could hear everything through the communication link. The captain was about to die. Dawn was about to die. 3,000 people were about to die. And there was nothing she could do. A sound came from behind her. She turned and saw Kova standing in the doorway of the bridge. He had broken out of his enclosure. The barriers that were supposed to hold him lay twisted on the cargo bay floor. He must have woke him when the fighting started. He must have heard the chaos and the fear and the gunfire. Now he stood there, his massive body filling the doorway, his yellow eyes fixed on the communication console. Through the speakers, Veth's voice echoed, "Let me show you what strength looks like." Kova moved. Jiwoo barely had time to get out of his way. He ran through the ship toward the airlock, his metal leg pounding against the floor. He squeezed through the connection tunnel and entered the colony ship. He followed a scent. The scent of the woman who had sat with him every night. The woman who had fed him and talked to him and touched him gently. The woman who had taken away his pain. The woman who was about to be killed. Kova ran faster than he had ever run in his life. In the cargo bay, Veth's finger tightened on the trigger. A shadow exploded through the door. Kova hit him like a missile. His full weight crashed into the Dominion commander, sending him flying across the room. Veth's weapon fired wildly, hitting the ceiling. For a moment, everyone froze. Then the Dominion soldiers opened fire on Kova. He felt the shots hit his body 1, 2, 3, but he did not stop. Pain was nothing new to him. He had lived in pain his entire life. This was different. This pain had purpose. He tore through the soldiers like they were made of paper. His claws cut through armor. His teeth crushed weapons. The Dominion had made him to be a monster, and now he turned that monstrous power against them. But he was not fighting for the Dominion anymore. He was fighting for her. Veth tried to run. Kova caught him. The commander screamed as claws pinned him to the ground. "What are you doing?" Veth shrieked. "You're one of ours. You were made to serve us." Kova looked down at him with eyes that held no mercy. Then he looked at Yuna, who was struggling to her feet despite her wounded shoulder. He stepped back. He did not kill Veth, not because he could not, but because she was watching. And somehow, he knew that she would not want him to kill if he did not have to. Yuna stared at the creature who had just saved her life. Blood dripped from wounds all over his body. His metal legs sparked from damage, but his tail wagged, once, weakly. "Tova," she breathed. He walked to her side, unsteady on his feet. Then his legs gave out and he collapsed, his massive head coming to rest against her leg. The cargo bay was silent. 3,000 colonists watched as the human captain knelt beside the dying war beast and put her hands on his scarred face. "You came for me," she said, her voice breaking. "You crazy, beautiful, wonderful creature. You came for me." Tova's eyes began to close, but he was still breathing. In and out. In and out, waiting for her to tell him it was okay. The story of what happened on the Bright Hope spread across the galaxy like fire. A Dominion war beast, one of the most feared weapons ever created, had turned against its makers. It had attacked its own kind to save a human captain. It had chosen love over programming, loyalty over conditioning. The Dominion called it a malfunction, a defective unit that should have been destroyed. They demanded that the Terran Republic hand over the creature for termination. The Terran Republic said no. Kova spent 2 months in a proper medical facility on Earth's orbital station. The doctors there had never treated a Fenric before. They had to learn everything from scratch, his biology, his chemistry, his unique needs. But they were human. And humans were very good at figuring things out. Dawn visited every day. His arm was in a sling, but he refused to rest until Kova was stable. He had started this journey not wanting the creature on his ship. Now he could not imagine life without him. "You know," he said one morning, sitting beside Kova's medical bed, "when I was young, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. But my parents said there was no future in it. They made me study xenobiology instead." Kova watched him with calm eyes. His wounds were healing. His strength was returning. "I think maybe they were wrong," Don continued. "I think taking care of creatures is the best thing a person can do, whether they're from Earth or from the other side of the galaxy." He reached out and scratched behind Kova's ear. The massive creature leaned into the touch, making a sound that was almost like a purr. Jiwoo came too. Though she was still a little nervous around Kova, she had watched him break through metal barriers like they were nothing. She had seen him tear through armored soldiers. That kind of power was hard to forget, but she also remembered how he had pushed that drop component back to her, how he had chosen to help instead of harm. "I made you something," she said during one of her visits. She held up a small device. "It's a translator. It won't give you words, but it can help you communicate. If you're happy, it makes a green light. If you're upset, it makes a red light. If you're hungry, it makes a yellow light." She attached it to his collar, a new collar. without any pain circuits or tracking chips. Kova looked at the device. Then he looked at Jiwoo. Then the light turned green. Jiwoo smiled so wide that her face hurt. When Kova was finally healthy enough to leave the medical station, there was a debate about what to do with him. Politicians argued. Military leaders gave their opinions. Scientists wrote reports. Yuna cut through all of it. "He's mine," she said at the hearing. Her shoulder was still stiff from her injury, but her voice was strong. "He chose me. I'm choosing him back." Some people objected. A war beast was too dangerous to be kept as a companion. What if he went wild? What if he hurt someone? Yuna looked at them with eyes that had seen too much death and not enough kindness. "He had every reason to be wild," she said. The Dominion made sure of that. They gave him nothing but pain and violence. They taught him that the universe was cruel and cold. And you know what he did when he had the chance to escape? He didn't run away. He ran toward the people who needed help. He fought to protect innocent lives. She paused. If that's what wild looks like, then maybe we need more wildness in this galaxy. The hearing ended. Kova was released into her care. She took him home. Her family house was in a rural part of Korea, surrounded by mountains and forests. It was a small house, simple and old, with a garden that her grandmother still tended every day. That grandmother was 93 years old. Her hair was white, her back was bent, and her hands shook with age. But her eyes were sharp and her heart was strong. When Yuna arrived with Kova, the old woman walked out to meet them. Kova was nervous. This was a new place with new smells. The open sky made him uneasy. He stayed close to Yuna, his body tense. Then the grandmother reached up and placed her weathered hand on his head. Kova froze. He waited for pain, for commands, for punishment. The grandmother just smiled. "He has kind eyes," she said softly. Sad but kind. Her touch was gentle. Her voice was warm. She smelled like flowers and cooking oil and something Kova did not recognize. Peace. She smelled like peace. He leaned into her hand, and something inside him finally let go. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Kova learned what it meant to have a home. He learned to sleep in the sunlight that fell through the windows. He learned to walk beside Yuna through the forest paths without fear. He learned that the small creatures in the garden were not prey but friends. The grandmother would talk to them, and Kova would watch with curious eyes. He learned that food came at regular times, in generous portions, and that nobody would take it away. He learned that hands could be gentle, that voices could be soft, that not every movement meant danger. Most of all, he learned that he was allowed to be tired, to be weak, to rest without worrying about punishment. One afternoon, a child from the neighboring farm came to visit. She was small and loud and moved in sudden bursts of energy. Everything about her should have triggered Kova's combat instincts. Instead, he lay down on the grass and let her pet his head. "He's so big," the child said with wonder. "Is he a dog?" Yuna smiled. "Something like that. What's his name?" "Kova. Kova," the child repeated. She wrapped her small arms around his massive neck. "I love you, Kova." The translator light on his collar glowed bright green. Years later, a journalist from a galactic news network came to interview Yuna. By then, she had been promoted several times. She was an important figure in the Terran Republic. But she still lived in the old house with the garden. And she still walked through the forest every evening with a scarred war beast at her side. "Captain Park," the journalist asked, "what made you save a dying creature on a dead planet? You risked your life, your career, everything. Why?" Yuna thought about the question for a long moment. "The Dominion made him into a weapon," she said finally. "They thought that was all he could ever be. But the thing about weapons is they don't choose who they're pointed at. Kova was never a weapon. He was a prisoner. All he needed was someone to open the cage. She looked out the window. In the garden, Kova was lying in his favorite spot, basking in the afternoon sun. A butterfly had landed on his nose. He was watching it with an expression that could only be called wonder. That's what humans do, Una continued. We find broken things, and we help them become whole. Not because it's easy, because it's right. The journalist recorded her words. The story spread across the galaxy. People watched it and felt something stir in their hearts. But in the small house in the mountains, none of that mattered. What mattered was the old grandmother laughing as Kova tried to catch falling leaves. What mattered was Jiwoo visiting on weekends. Now a full engineer with her own ship. What mattered was Dohan bringing treats from exotic planets, testing each one until he found Kova's favorite. What mattered was Yuna sitting on the porch every evening, Kova's head in her lap, watching the sun set behind the mountains. He had been made to destroy. He had been trained to kill. He had been thrown away like garbage when he was no longer useful. But humans had found him, and humans had taught him something. His creators never understood. There was more to existence than pain. There was warmth. There was kindness. There was love. There was home. Kova closed his eyes and listened to the sound of Yuna's heartbeat. Steady, calm, safe. He was not the Dominion's monster. Anymore. He was home. And he would never be alone again.